Hey y'all, what's up people? Just some background info, right? I'm gonna let you guys know. I'm sitting here with some time. I'm going on spring break next week, right? And I'm sitting here like, okay, I need to record some content, in the name of trying to be consistent. I need to record another video, So I'm sitting here and like I had some ideas, right? But my thoughts just weren't flowing for those, and there was more thinking that I wanted to do, and basically I'm in a time crunch, right? And so I'm like, I need to record, but I don't have any thought out or outlined kind of ideas. So I'm like, what's something that I can speak on, right? I only like to speak on stuff that I'm knowledgeable about or something that I have experiences with that I can share. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, Lord, what can I speak on? Let something come to my mind. Voila, here we are. This is the result. So basically, like I said, I have no game plan, but I am about to just speak on stuff that I've seen and experienced. I'm gonna say some stuff that I feel like just in my generation especially, a lot of people just don't want to say, or don't want to hear. Some people are saying, but I say that because I want to introduce like something that I think is a really good term. I didn't start using this term, but I heard it before, and it's called church hurt. I'm a Christian, right? Hello, praise Jesus, praise the Lord. Right, and I know that, just like everyone else knows, like there's so many people, abandoning traditional beliefs, abandoning Christianity for a lot of different reasons. So I want to talk about church hurt because as a Christian who didn't grow up in the church, right? So it's not like a lot of people like to assume like when you're a Christian, they're like, oh, you're still holding on to, what your parents taught you, or you still being sleep on, when really like first of all, my parents didn't teach me this. They didn't drill or instill. They, introduced God to us, but they didn't really, not like some people. We weren't raised in the church. So with that being said, I came to know God through my own researching and coming to college and, just learning more, being around people who, helped me, that were good friends, good people. And just, they didn't impose anything on me either. I came to learn more about God, once I got to college. Therefore, nonetheless, I want to just introduce the term church hurt because most people abandon the church because of the bad experiences they've had. So if you don't know what church hurt means, if I say church hurt, that's just like the term that I like to put on it because it's easy, to reference that way. I'm referring to, people say, oh, well, Christians do this, Christians do this, Christians do that. And they are right. They are so right. Like, just when I've seen it, but then also like stories that I've heard just about like the stuff that people have experienced like in church and church leaders, what we've seen church leaders do, and family members, friends who call themselves Christian, who be in church smiling and acting holy on Sundays and then acting a fool every other day of the week. That is real, like that's reality. But you guys, that's not God, okay? Where I feel like my generation is coming from is that they've been hurt. But what they fail to realize is that any tool in the wrong hands can be misused. Just because slave masters took verses out of context to try and keep slaves as slaves, that doesn't mean that the Bible is inherently bad. Just because you were hurt by the church that you've been raised in doesn't mean that God is not a good God. Just because people, right, flesh, and this is what, if you really knew the Bible, this is what it teaches. Don't put these people on a pedestal as to who God is, or as to perfectly representing who God is. Because the whole reality of it is, unfortunately, yes, we should be better representatives, but we aren't. And I'm saying we because I know that I'm not a perfect representative, because somebody could just as easily come and say to me like, oh, well, you say you're a Christian and you do this, that, and the third. And I'm gonna be like, I'm trying every day. But you know what I'm saying? Just because, people have represented God badly 2 things doesn't mean that God is a bad God. 3 doesn't mean that, I said 3. 2 doesn't mean that you should disown God and just completely abandon your beliefs. Or if they probably were, if you were raised in church, maybe they were never your beliefs in the first place. Doesn't mean that you should disown your knowledge or the faith or just the desire to learn, at least, because most people, what they do is they say, oh, these, Christians say they do this, that, and the third. That's why I don't believe in Christianity. And then they'll also say, right, the whole thing about, oh, you're still believing in what you were told. Whole time while they disown Christianity, they went and found somebody on Instagram and told them all this, that, and the third, and they blaming us for, or they're accusing us of believing what we're told. Whole time they're believing some random on Instagram that they're getting their facts from or whatever. I'm not knocking no specific beliefs either. It's just I'm specifically addressing just the trajectory that I see of Christians and the state of Christianity in my generation. I live in a generation where everyone is trying to be woke, and I think that, like, at its root is a good thing, right? We all want to find the truth, and we all want to be educated and we all want to be educated and enlightened, and that's like a great desire, but I just think so many people, one, just go about it the wrong way, by, again, just like believing something that makes them feel good, right? Going and like believing someone like who just says like, yes, we are all, I'm trying to say this without, like, I'm not trying to mock, again, like anyone's beliefs, but believing something that makes you feel good. I don't know, like, I think that a lot of people do that because most of the time when people disown Christianity, they oftentimes move on towards something that uplifts them, right? Or that pushes them or themselves or their people onto a pedestal. It's never that, usually, and not like completely never, but a lot of the times, most of the time, it's not that people are leaving Christianity and to go believe in something else above themselves or separate of themselves. Usually they're going to believe in something that, again, promotes themselves, right? That puts themselves on that pedestal. Like, we are this, I am this, we are, I am, a lot of that. So I just think, again, I don't know, like, a lot of people won't say this, and I think this applies to all of us. We all have a desire to promote ourselves. We all have a desire to be I-centered. But that's what's so great about Christianity, is that it pushes you to do the exact opposite. The biggest thing, like, as I'm talking and just thinking about what I want to say, is for people to take away the fact that you just can't let, your hurt and people that you've experienced dictate how you view the faith. Right, it's a whole theology, you know what I'm saying, that can't be ignored, and it, for thousands of generations and years, it's held up. And so I just think, it's hard. Like, I get it. It's tempting to say, like, God, if these are your people, then I want nothing to do with you. But if you would just crack open the book, just give it a chance, it'll be like, yes, very clearly, my people are not it. Like, we aren't, because honestly, to be frank, just like humans, and this is something that most people could agree on, unless they just high on that, like, BS, if I might say, most people can agree, humans, we ain't ish. Like, I ain't want to cuss, but we're not. And so that's just something to keep in mind. If I can, just reemphasize, people can take anything, y'all, and, twist it, take it out of context, which is done with the Bible a lot. People can take anything and twist it and use it for their own bad intentions. That has nothing to do with the book or the text itself. But a lot of people won't know that because they don't read it. I could sit here and list, you guys, and I talk about it all the time in my circles. I can sit here and list so many verses that if I just spewed them out to you, y'all would probably be like, what the heck is the Bible talking about? Context, that's what's missing. A lot of times people take, one sentence out of a book, out of a passage, out of a chapter. And if you did that with anything else, didn't we all learn how important context clues are in elementary school? If you take a sentence out of a passage, you can get a completely different idea than what the book is actually about. That's why they stress that so hard. But that's something that we seem to forget, because all it takes for us nowadays in social media age is for somebody to quote one thing, and then all of a sudden they'll say, oh, look at what the Bible says, this, that, and the third. This is why, yada, 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 yada. whole time if they would have just read the next verse. Like, it won't, you know what I'm saying? Their point won't add up. But again, a lot of people don't read. How many people actually pick up and read their Bible? So we're easily fooled, or a lot of us just don't know. Even if we don't believe, a lot of us don't know enough to say, well, they're wrong. Even if they might, you know, we might be suspicious. We might be like, I don't know about all that. Or we might not necessarily believe them, but we don't know what to say to it because we haven't read. So it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate to see, you know, how many times, you know, people take and twist the Bible, and really sad, right? Like, of course, like, I want to take a second too, just to acknowledge people's feelings in that, like, again, as a Christian, like, that makes you even more, I think, responsible in a sense, right? As a Christian, like, I feel for people when they say, like, man, like, the church that I went to made me feel like this, like, they judged me, they criticized me, they were they cared more about religion, or for better terms, legalism, right? They care more about rules and tradition and other stuff that, you know, doesn't really matter the most. That breaks my heart, like, it really does. And it's really sad, because when you see somebody leave the faith because of that, it's almost just like, I'm so sorry, but that's not who God is. For anybody that does feel like Christians are all just blind, just do some, like, legitimate research, like, up against the Bible, and read the Bible for yourself. So don't just go, research also includes, right, you can't do one-sided research. You can't look up anti-Bible stuff and be like, well, look, this article says, you know, this, that, and the third, but you actually haven't actually read the passage in the Bible that it's referencing. You know, just, like, seriously, read the Bible and look up, you know, stuff that you feel like contradicts in the Bible. I promise you, like, we all know the Bible has been around for so long. There's literally no question or nothing that you can bring up that probably hasn't already been asked before. You just have to go and do the research and find it. There's that, but I also just want to encourage people too. So, like, if I could be of any encouragement, you know, to people who feel like that, like, know that it's real. And even Christians who, I guess, try to minimize that too, like, you know, and say, like, I mean, yeah, but God is still good. It's like, okay, but, you know, what do you have to say about the way that his people represent him? So, I mean, I would just encourage you and say that, one, you know, your pain is understood. Like, Christians just need to do better. But two, in the church, right, really, like, even though I can acknowledge in one breath, like, Christians are still people, just like everybody else, we also are supposed to be representing God. And so I think that the church just needs to do better, period. But also just know that there will always be messed up Christians out there, but know that there are also still, like, just great, you know, good people out there who are God's people, who really try to be faithful to him. There's still churches with sweethearted aunties and warm feelings and praises and all of those things. Might be hard to find one, but they're out there. In those churches, like, that feeling of love and warmth that I know a lot of people have experienced as well, right? So all of us haven't experienced her, but that feeling of warmth and love and care that we've experienced by believers, people who are in the faith, those people still exist. And that's what, you know, being in Christ should feel like. And being in a community, right? The church, that's what it should feel like. So yeah, guys, I can't stress it enough. Context matters sometimes more than anything. Don't let anybody take a verse out of context and throw it at you. I mean, and we won't know every verse in the Bible, so that's why you just got to read, aka do your research and read for yourself. You know, that's going to happen, right? It always has happened. You know, again, that's like one of the biggest criticisms of the Bible in America, is that that's what happened during slavery. But it still happens in, you know, in plenty of other ways. And so that's always going to be there. But that's why context is so important. Find the context if you don't know it, and be sure to also, you know, even when you're reading, sometimes we're reading and we don't know what we're reading, what time period, who's speaking, who they're addressing, right? So much of the Bible is letters. All of that is context too. So there's so many layers to having a full idea of what you're, like, reading, you know, what the Bible is talking about. All of that matters. So I would just encourage you, if you've ever, like, seen something questionable That's all you got to do is read, you know. And that's not to say that you'll find the answers to everything right away, but a lot of it you will. And so, yeah, I mean, to that, like, I do just want to express, like, it's not cool to judge a Christian for believing in, you know, what they were raised to see. Especially, it's not cool to judge, period. Especially if that's what you criticize Christians of doing. You know, like, Christians are so judgmental, but then every time someone says they're a Christian, you turn around and say, you still doing that? You sleep, you not woke, you I can't mess with Christians, everything in the book. So it's not cool to judge, period, and don't be guilty of the same thing that you accuse Christians of. But then also, especially when you believe in what you see on Instagram or one or two little articles, you know, yeah. The last thing that I kind of want to address comes from some sort of like a personal place. And I think that this is a good point to end on. And it's just that I think people sometimes can judge Christians as if they still aren't people. So I touched on it a little bit when I was talking about, you know, church hurt, you know, how they're still people and still do messed up stuff. But even like on a more regular level, right? So outside of just the church, like that happens outside of just when people are criticizing the church, right? As a college student, right, who goes to a public university, I've experienced just feeling that pressure of people, you know, people are looking at you different because it's like, oh, you're a Christian, or better yet, I'll say like sometimes you'll do something, right? And it doesn't have to be something super outrageous. You could make a post, something that you found funny. And that's to say like, it might not be the wisest thing to do. But me being just as much of a, you know, 21-year-old college student trying to figure stuff out as everybody else, I might do that sometimes, and I might do something that's not the wisest. Or I'm not going to make the best decisions all the time. With that being said, people will say stuff like, ain't you supposed to be a Christian? Yes. And it's like, yes, I am. And you must have a messed up idea of what that means. Because being a Christian doesn't mean that I know that I'm perfect or that I try to be something that is, you know, better than everybody else, or that I try to hold myself to this high standard and be this super good person. That is called being self-righteous. What being a Christian is knowing that I have issues and knowing that I messed up doing whatever, you know, and knowing that God already, Jesus already atoned for that, and believing that. That's what it means to be a Christian. And that's what separates me from everybody else. It's not that being a Christian makes me experience the world differently as any other 21-year-old who goes to a public university and experiences all the same stuff. It's not that it does that. It doesn't make me exempt from all of that same stuff. Especially, I grew up in the same culture, you know what I'm saying, struggle with some of the same stuff, you know, and people act like, ain't you supposed to be a Christian? Yes, but you clearly don't know what that means. All that means is that I know that Jesus atoned for that already. And of course, it means that when I do have issues, when I do get myself into trouble, when I do get myself in a mess, or when stuff isn't going good, I have someone to trust in. I know that I don't have the power to, you know, do certain things. Like, that's what it means to be a Christian, not that I'm not going to make the same mistakes as every other person. And of course, I have to add being affected, right? When I'm talking about what it means to be a Christian, being affected by what you know Jesus did on the cross, I am going to constantly be trying, right? And that's what, again, should separate the church. There are people who are still out here trying to be faithful to God. That doesn't mean that they're perfect, but it does mean that they are constantly trying to be more like him. And with that being said, I feel like that's a good note to end on. Yeah, guys, I hope that everything that I was saying comes across pretty clearly. I guess I'll see when I edit. Yeah, thank you guys for listening if you've listened throughout the whole video. If you made it to this point in the video and you haven't subscribed yet, you might as well. It only takes a second, and it's so appreciated. Like, thank you. If you do, like, you're a real one. Thank you. Until the next time, guys.